History driving across the country.
Barely get through the 20,000 square feet. Anyway, it's a big one. All right, John, I think we're good to go.
I will call the meeting to order. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Historic Resources Commission of the City of Albany, New York. My name is John Myers, I'm the chair of the commission. Also in attendance this evening are Commissioner McEnany, Commissioner Hacker, Commissioner Kaplan, Commissioner Garrity, and Commissioner Pinckney. We are represented by Brett Williams from Corporation Counsel and Aaron Glennon, our ever faithful keeper of all documents from the planning office, is with us this evening. We do have a forum, but this is a public workshop format, so there won't be any decisions rendered this evening. For those viewing on YouTube, if anyone has signed up to offer comments, we welcome comments, but request that they be on the topic at hand and be limited in duration to 3 minutes in the interest of timing. With all of that said, we can begin the meeting. The project in question this evening is one project. It's the South End Scattered Site Development in the Albany County Land Bank, and it's in the South End Rosebeckville Historic District. We have a packet that was provided, as well as the 1A archaeological report that was provided, along with a letter dated October 12th from the State Historic Preservation Office, responding to the archaeological report and basically concurring with the findings of the report and concurring with the next phase of investigation, which will be the 1B investigation on 10 of the parcels of land. We are fortunate on the commission to have a resident archaeologist, and Jennifer Garrity has reviewed the document, and I think we'll offer some comments, but I would open it up first to the applicant to see if they have a format or agenda they would like to pursue in reviewing the project in this meeting. So I'll turn it over to the applicant at this point.
Clarification.
Good evening, everyone. I don't know if anyone from ownership wants to speak first, but what we were hoping to be able to present today is the project as a whole, and then we can break it into the smaller pieces. And I don't know if I share my screen or if Aaron, you have to bring up the documents we sent over to the city. It is a huge, well, it's a large project with many different sites, and it is scattered throughout the South End district there. You know, I think you guys are familiar with it, but also just kind of want to run you down the thinking, the design, and sort of the process we've gone through and where we're at now. And if that's okay, I don't know what's best, but.
Eduardo, I can give you the ability to share screen, but I do have all the documents that you did provide. They're broken down by development plan review grouping. So if you, I don't know if that's the way that you have it planned, but we can run through it that way.
Yeah, I think that maybe the first way to see it would be by looking at the Albany South End HRC, sort of the site plan, the 8. It's a PDF yes, with eight, yes, with 8 pages. So here is just sort of the big picture and the number of current units and the number of the current count of buildings and structures, which is at 39. It's a combination of duplexes, some single family homes, duplexes, several multi-unit buildings, and also a couple of different sort of triplex and duplex kind of blocks. So if you could go to the next page, this is sort of the format. So here we have one of the larger blocks, and it's along Broad Street. So it's along so it's one, there's a 5-block portion that's 137 to 145. And then there's also a 3-block portion that's between 129 and 133. And then there's also like a single family, or not a single family, but a standalone duplex there. That's a 2-story duplex. And basically the idea and the design, and we've kind of mentioned this before, but it's more to bring in a design that's a bit of a fresh look into the neighborhood. The ownership was really adamant about using fiber cement as much as possible, and be able to use a variety of colors, be able to use a variety of materials. So what we are proposing at the moment is, in terms of siding, it's fiber cement siding and trim, and at the front and vestibule and visible side facades, with a 6-inch exposure lap siding. There are, and it's hard to see in your screen, but maybe we go to the larger elevations, you can see it. But the basic idea is fiber cement panels, board and batten areas, and then in some cases we would also have sort of the panels with reveals, and in the multi-unit buildings we would have brick to the windowsill, and then fiber cement panels and siding up above. For the windows right now, we're still kind of getting all our numbers in, but it's obviously we can't use vinyl in the front. So we're looking at some fiberglass options for the front facades. The idea is to give them a contemporary look. So we're going with little darker windows in these areas in some instances, and then a little like more tan gray windows in other areas where we have lighter fiber cement siding. For the doors, we're looking at, like Therma-Tru style insulated fiberglass doors with side lights. And we would be using, simulated, fully simulated divided lights for the windows. We would be using fiber cement for the cornices, and then we would build out some canopies or little overhangs that would extend out, that could either be in some cases sort of a metal clad or fiber cement clad, depending on the specific building. But in this case here, we're trying to match, or we're trying to maximize really the number of units and the density in the buildings in the district. So in some cases, given the lot sizes, we went with 2 stories, or in other cases, we went with 3 stories. The 2-story design is really like two walk-ups, basically. One that gets you into the unit on the ground floor, and then the upstairs unit is a door with a staircase that then takes you to the upstairs unit. And the reason why we did these here is because of the limitations that the buildings have due to the lot width and the requirements, and also the requirements that were required to meet for HCR. So there's certain size requirements that we have to be able to provide. So those were the best fits. At the 3-story buildings, we were able to provide internal sort of fire rated staircases that take you to each unit on each floor. So you come in, there's like a central staircase, and then and you can see it in the floor plans a little bit in the bigger block buildings. There's a central staircase, and then at each floor there's an entrance to the first floor, second floor, third floor, and then those have combinations of mostly 2 bedrooms in those cases. And then in some cases we are not restricted to site-wise to the grade, so we can provide on-ground access to the entry units. But in other cases, this is a good example here. As you go to the right on your screen, the 3 block has a serious steep, a really steep grade that occurs at this block building there, and even the neighboring building, I believe, like the basement is a it's like a ground unit at the ground floor. In our cases, the basements are not units, and in some cases we have partial basements, and in most cases we have partial basements just to get utilities and mechanicals in there. Given the light situation, we can't really get any units or bedrooms out in the back, so having units on the ground floor wasn't really possible in this case. So that's why we have, in these cases, stoops. And right now, the stoops will be consisting of metal rails that would railings that each entry would have or each unit would have. And then the final material of the actual stoop is being finalized, but we've looked at some options to be able to use some of the Trex staircases or something a little bit more durable, maybe like a precast steps, but we're still getting some numbers for those and trying to get the best option available. If you go to the next page, we can kind of go on. I'll be a little quicker with the other locations, but so in here we have right on Broad and Second Ave, we have a multi-unit building that on the ground floor will have a 3-bedroom accessible unit, and then if you just scan to the right a little bit so you can see the floor plan, and we will have amenity spaces and offices for both property management and any type of services that are provided there. Those are still being fleshed out, but there is one location where there's a commercial space that's being allocated, and that's along South Pearl, but the ones on this area are just going to be offices and amenity spaces. And then here we have 2 buildings next to, or on either side of a existing building that we're not sure quite what the status is of it, because it seems to be completely inhabitable. It seems like it's deteriorated over time. It has a beautiful facade, but not sure what the status of the building is going to be in the future. But one thing that we do deal with in this specific site is the steep grade. So one of the reasons why we have the stoops is because of that steep grade, and this is one example where we have that. And here the units will be fiber cement siding, and then also some canopies at the entrances. And then the big building is a combination of fiber cement siding that has a little bit of play with colors and panels, and also the lab siding in some areas. I think you can see it on the other side. There's some little differences between the materials. So maybe not this one doesn't. The one on Clinton has it, but again, fiber cement cornices. We're trying to keep a consistency between all the buildings, but at the same time provide variety. So if you go to the next page, and just kind of go through these. So these are all the different scenarios that we have. Obviously, we have 2 blocks, 3 blocks, and again, depending on the grade, we are changing or we're elevating the buildings as needed, and we're trying to get as many at ground level as possible. All the multi-unit buildings have ground level entrances, which provide units on the ground floor to be accessible, because there is no elevator in those buildings. And we are also trying to be conscious of the heights of the existing buildings and trying to match them where possible. But in some cases, one side of the new construction is right at the same level that we're building at, and then the other side is a 2-story structure that's really small. So either way, you always have some variation in height. I think you can go on to the next page. Kind of want to go through. I keep everyone here on some more situations where we have duplexes that are connected, and we'll have some similar materials, and then some standalone duplexes that will have sort of a one of the colors for the siding will be sort of like a brick red, but they won't. It's fiber cement. And then the multi-unit building here, you can see, has some siding and some paneling, kind of a combination. At the ground floor, we're having large windows for the commercial space areas, and also just taller windows at the ground level where the unit faces the street. So you can see kind of some of those there. We can go to the next page. Some more examples of some of the buildings. At the Second Ave near Elizabeth Street, we have some sort of standalone duplexes that are adjacent to some existing buildings there. One of the reasons why we are not attaching the buildings to the adjacent structure is due to just the complexity of building next to an existing building. And in some cases, some of these buildings are dilapidating. So we're trying to avoid the foundations. We're trying to avoid touching those existing walls, because I don't know exactly how it works, but once you touch it, you own it, type of thing. So we don't want to be responsible for something that is adjacent that obviously ownership doesn't own. And also it provides access to the backyards, to the rear yards for both the residents and facilities and maintenance, especially when we have multiple buildings connected with each other. And here are some sort of different colors that we're using. The ones on the Second Avenue elevation south, number 2, we had these a little bit smaller and shorter previously, but given the comments that the board provided, we made them a little taller, as tall as possible, to be able to match sort of the height of the adjacent homes that are there. So that's one of the things that you might notice that's different than what we had before. If you go on to the next page, some more. This is on 3rd Avenue. This street is actually very interesting because it's completely empty. It's completely empty except for that one building that you see in between the blue and the 3-story structure there, and the 2-story structure. One of the things we are doing is trying to maintain the setback requirements, to match the existing, the average. Obviously, on this street, it's a little different because there isn't much except for that one building. So we're just kind of matching that building there. Obviously, it's an area that needs, development, and putting these buildings in here definitely help. But obviously, there are some additional lots that will be left empty. But we're trying to, in this specific site, we were given the opportunity to be able to provide larger buildings with a little bit more density, and for economy of scale, and also be able to not have complete one-offs for every building type that we have. This 5-block matches the 5-block on Broad, so that there are little differences because of the specific locations, but overall it's the same concept and design. And if you go to the next page, here we have some, this is the South Pearl Street elevation of the building that we would have that has some, we'll have some type of commercial space there. I think ownership is thinking of the different things that they can like open it up for some type of leasing. It won't be a restaurant. It won't be something that would require a lot of equipment and something that would be more tricky. So not sure exactly what that retail would be, but it would be something that provides services to the community. We do have storefront windows there. Just looking at the facade, could possibly be a little different in terms of the amount of windows, but the white windows on the left are for the commercial space, and then the windows on the right are for the unit and the building. And then those are some examples of the adjacent buildings. So we're really trying to keep it within the same height, but obviously providing some space in between the structures. And then the building on the right there, I have to apologize. The stoops on this building did disappear on this drawing here, but there are some stoops there because we had to elevate the buildings to be able to kind of meet at the back the grade and not have to dig in and create a site issue with drainage and digging way too much. So that's sort of the big picture view. We do have some DPR sets. I think if you went to DPR, hold on, let me just see. I think a good DPR set to go to would be, 0178, if you can. Yeah, and let's see, is that 0178? Yeah, well, these are, this is actually the one here that was missing the stoops, but we've called out some of these materials. We've called out, some of these heights at the floor levels. And we're trying to finalize the design in respect to costs, respect to materials, where we have a contractor on board that's really trying to get us a little bit more refined. Obviously, we will, get all your recommendations, take that in, and obviously things that are mandatory due to the historic conditions will be met. But on the sides, we're going to be doing fiber cement, and there will be some corner board trims, and there will be some coping, and then depending on the grade, we'll have some at the moment, one thought was, instead of just exposed concrete, is potentially provide a stucco, but also just depending also, on the economy and cost, just trying to get, what we can presented to you guys right now is what's in front of you. But I've spoken a lot, so I don't know, Ken, Asher, if you guys want to add anything specifically before we continue this.
I mean, I am curious about the archaeological study, but then I have nothing else to add regarding the presentation. Good job, Eduardo. Thank you.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment. I don't have anything to add at this time.
Okay, and then, so Aaron, if you could just go, we can just kind of run through these elevations. They're obviously much zoomed in here. I don't know if you guys want me to talk about sort of the design or the materials. I think one of the things that I'm trying to do is provide some vibrancy. So that's why we went with colors that are a little bit brighter, contrasted with colors that are a little bit more, a little darker. What you see a lot now is a lot of blacks and grays, and we're trying to really just try to avoid just using that or just using tans and browns. So we're trying to use something that's a little different, and hopefully it's something that can really leave a mark on the community, and that's why we went with something that's more a little bit more contemporary, but yet trying to keep the rhythm, trying to keep the form of the existing historic district. Obviously there are differences with color and in some cases the use of the materials, but just kind of want to get your take. Think that this workshop is a good way for us to be able to express what we want to do and then get some feedback. So.
I guess one of the things that came out of my read of the archaeological report was the transition of this neighborhood from its earliest days of frame buildings to brick buildings. So what does remain in the district are also brick buildings. And I wonder if there has been any consideration given to adding that to your palette. I understand the fiber cement is a cost-effective solution to the number of buildings, but I think paying some deference to the masonry heritage of the neighborhood also has some viability, and it would result in, I think, a compatible fit within the neighborhood. The other question I had or comment is you're not, when you infill between existing buildings, you are providing a gap. So you're not compounding any issues with the foundations for those existing buildings. If the building is, the surviving building is a brick masonry building that used to be part of a row and now it has an exposed wall, is sufficient space provided to perform the appropriate maintenance for the owners of those buildings, so that those facades can be maintained. Many instances when we've had a building removed in the city and it exposes a brick wall that was never intended to be exposed, there are rapid deterioration cycles that occur. And certainly we want to be able to say that the buildings are located so that it does permit the appropriate maintenance of the neighboring structures, because our goal is to see as much of the existing fabric that still survives to continue to survive.
Right. So just to answer that question to you, what we've done is we're maximizing the setback allowed in this area, which is about 3.5 feet. And if we were to go any bigger than that, it would require a variance, which is something that we're trying to avoid. So I think there's unfortunately some sort of competing things happening. Obviously the buildings adjacent to it were not, the quality of brick a lot of times when it's not the front facade or meant to be exposed isn't as durable. But I think we're providing the biggest space or the most allowed space, permitted. So hopefully that's enough. I think in some cases we have even encroachment from the neighboring buildings into the adjacent building or into the adjacent lot. And we're trying to keep that gap so that there's still some access between the two buildings. But I think that's, and obviously if we could provide more space, it would be, ideal for everyone, but we're limited by zoning. And hopefully, obviously there are some existing buildings that are brick and older. I know that the one between on Broad Street, that's one of the oldest ones that we're next to, I think has like a driveway and a side yard. So luckily in that case, it was never attached to another building, but we'd have to go site by site and see that. But and then also in your response to the brick, I think one of the reasons is the economy, or a more economic material. and we've really been, you know, it's just unfortunately not I don't know, maybe ownership can speak to that one a little bit more, but it's not something that was really pushed. And we're trying to see where we can, provide it and where we just have to limit it. So
Yep, you're absolutely right, Eduardo. It's more of it's a pricing issue at this point due to the construction pricing escalating from the pandemic. But yes, that's the current plan to use the materials that Eduardo put forth here.
Well, we certainly understand the pressures of the economy, and interest rates and everything else that is probably having a profound impact on the project as well. It was really an observation tied back to the archaeological report and the history of the neighborhood, and where, if it's possible to introduce some elements that do harken back to that evolutionary aspect of the neighborhood. We are evolving to a fiber cement neighborhood now in many cases here. But, again, I raised the point just for consideration in the further development of the project.
yeah. And I think, what we're also doing now is getting some numbers and stuff. And if an opportunity comes up, then it's something that, it's good to hear, and that concern. But I think it's just, unfortunately, because of the cost of things, it's a hardship to provide a lot of brick, and obviously it's very durable, but we're trying to work with these here, and one of the reasons why we are providing sort of materials that are a little bit more vibrant and is just because it is a little different, but at the same time, fiber cement or especially like the lap siding is something that is very prominent in that area right now. Probably a lot of vinyl. I'm not sure if it's because it's not permitted, but it seemed like I saw a lot of vinyl in that area. But we're trying to just work with these here. If you go to the Broad Street, or not, sorry, the next Broad Street, the 08178, Aaron. Yeah, here you can kind of see sort of the materials that we're kind of working with, and I think so. Unfortunately, some of these stoops disappeared. People will not be flying, and they were in the site plan, but for some reason it just disappeared on the drawings here. But I think one of the things that we are trying to just get feedback on is just on what you guys see, and any more comments, we appreciate it.
I have yes.
Yeah, I would say if we could run through these all individually, or if people would, after reviewing the packets, want to provide comments, I'm open to either.
I have a few general comments. When was it that we saw we've only seen this once, yeah?
This came before the commission, I believe it was June or July.
Something like that.
Yeah, it was June, I believe, and it came for a concept review.
Right.
So I believe what we saw at that point was more or less of like the site plan documents that were in the beginning of the packet. And they, Eduardo has since provided the kind of individual kind of site by site, just general elevation drawings for you all to review for this meeting.
I'll go back and look in my files, but my recollection was that kind of many of us or all of us were very thrilled that the project's going forward. But I can only speak for myself that my recollection of a fresh approach to the design felt different than what I'm seeing today. So I don't know if some of the reality of costs have hit the project or what, but I'll go back and look. Something feels like it shifted in terms of the overall character of what we're seeing. What's the, and then I have a series of other questions. What's the status of the project in terms of where are you through the approvals and what are you targeting for a construction start, et cetera?
Ken or Asher?
In terms of financing approvals, we're still working with the state and getting this into their 2024 pipeline. We're hoping that we can get it closed financially, get it to the financial closing table by end of 2024, so Q4 of 2024, and then I think construction would be shortly thereafter, probably January through March for breaking ground. But that's the high level timeline that we're shooting for right now.
And what level of approval from, say, the HRC is required at this point for their HCR, or for their state pipeline?
I don't know if there's like a specific approval process that we're shooting for at this point, where like that process is mostly goes through like credit committee process and a board approval process, which we haven't gone through yet. But that would be the eventual approvals that we would eventually need.
So just to add, this is a 4% project and not a 9%. So like the 9% projects have very specific timelines and submission dates. But this
Right.
one is working more with financing, and it's
I'm
more
sorry,
drawn out.
I didn't quite hear you and I didn't quite understand the difference between a 4% and a 9%?
So this
Well-
is a 4% light tech project, and that's an as of right credit approval. But the 9% is tied to a lot of deadlines and dates. So that one is a more stringent timeline that we are not following. We are doing the as of right 4%.
So the LIHTC is the low income
Yes.
tax credit.
Correct.
9% is much more competitive and difficult to acquire than the 4%.
Oh, okay. With the LIHTC, will there be review of the proposed elevation drawings and site plan by the State Preservation Office? Will there be a 1409 review?
Yeah, HCR does review it, but in terms of it's just more that it meets the standard for HCR. Their plans and their spaces and materials. There's certain materials you can't use. They're not very. They don't judge projects necessarily on. They don't review it that they review more spaces and there's guidelines that give you certain materials that you can't use. You can't use thin brick. You can't use certain materials, but it's not a kind of review board that you have to get the design okayed. It's just more that the program and that the general design conforms to the guidelines, if that makes any sense. But
So because HDR is public funds, all their projects are publicly funded, it will go through the State Historic Preservation Office for, I believe a 1409, and then I believe also a 106, because I think some of the funds that they're designated are from the federal level as well. This project is also going to go through the environmental review process. So with the seeker, it also gets circulated to the State Historic Preservation Office as part of that review. They're currently they've received the documents, they've made comments for the archaeological recording. So that will go to State Preservation Office for review as well.
So there'll be plenty of review, and we may want to discuss internally how to coordinate with that. so that hopefully to facilitate any reviews that the project sponsors have.
We will have the review for the certificate of appropriateness. We are an identified involved agency as part of the seeker review. I mean, we don't have much involvement with their tax credit, but they will have to submit whatever does get approved by the city to HCR as part of their package.
Okay. It still would be nice to coordinate as much as possible. I concur with Commissioner Myers relative to the protection of the adjacent properties and whether that's a engineering / construction impact during construction and or the adjacency to the clearance relative to the adjacent structure. But for my own purposes, I also feel as if it's such a big and important project that I feel the need to take these drawings, these renderings on site and understand them really relative to street by street. Where I thought that, John, that you were going was not only about the brick masonry, kind of throughout the district, but one of the reactions that I had is that it's really a relatively cookie cutter solution to streets that have their own character. And so I'd like to, when we look at this a little more closely, I'll hope that I literally go, and whoever else, of course, however that works, but go to each site and understand the impact of what we're seeing on what's there. And that's gonna be necessary for me. Another unique situation would be the project that we saw, or the building that we saw in South Pearl. And I'll hope that when we get to that, we look a little more closely because it's not a residential, it's residential units, but it's a commercial. Yeah, on the first floor and even the fenestration patterns above. So I think that one's a little bit different for a different set of reasons. One element that, one additional element that I'll be interested in looking at, because we don't have photographs here of the adjacent buildings, et cetera, is the height, the space, the spandrel space, I guess, between the windows on the first, second floor, second, third floor cornice, especially on some of the primary elevations in particular. I'd like us to speak more to that, and it will be helpful again once we're looking at the adjacent buildings. But it feels as if the buildings are pretty flat. And yet, are they modern? Are they not modern? What does modern mean? You know, that's a whole, I think, discussion. But where do these fit for us in terms of the range from a very traditional approach to a more contemporary approach, which I think was what I was expecting from our earliest conversations. And I'm not quite sure where we ended up. So it seems to be somewhat in between, and again, I think that's why it would be so important to look at the different the proposed solutions by street, and really by both sides of the street, to understand what's remaining. I think it was, I forgot which street, but there's one building, so that's a different. Yeah, that's a different. Yeah, that's true. But that's a different story when we've got some of these 2 or 3 clustered in, and we've got a lot of structures. So delighted you're here, and we'll keep working together. And again, I'll go back to see the earliest renderings or sketches that we had and see what kind of transition I can see. And again, we'll recommend that we all take a look block by block, because I'm not sure that single, although it may be a set grouping of materials, but how they are rendered, and I think should be given quite a bit of consideration, particularly block by
it's an exciting project. I certainly encourage us to move forward with all dispatch and consideration. It's exciting to see a neighborhood that has been scarred by so much demolition, to have some opportunity to reinvent itself and fill its void spaces. And I think the massing and the sensitivity of the massing elements of the project seems to work quite well. It fits within the scale of the neighborhood. And the division of the apparent building volumes seems to fit that rhythm in the neighborhood. So I think there's a lot good about the project that's to move forward. I just think that there are, I agree with Commissioner Kaplan that, walking down the neighborhood, seeing what survives and how this all fits within the context of the surroundings is an important aspect of the, because it's a big project, it's a major impact in this section of Albany.
And I agree, and really would appreciate that feedback so that we can get, sort of that pertinent information there. And look forward to working with you guys, because obviously this is a very significant project, and it's both big in terms of quantity and also in significance to that specific neighborhood. So we want to be, partners with the city and with the board. So
I could make a couple of observations, and some of it is philosophical. One, I love the idea. By the way, we refer to it as 39, and we've referred to it as 40. Is that units? Is that sites?
oh, no, 39. Sorry, when I said 39, it's 39 structures.
Structures.
And 100 and currently there's 39 structures and 107 units.
107 units. Okay.
Yeah, and there's been so I don't know if Ken or Asher need to add to that at all, but that's currently where we're at.
Okay. When I look at the drawings here, I see some things that are very compatible, and the goal is, by the way, the first thing that's there is most important, is the existing neighborhood. And we don't want to be so radically different. It's always a difficult thing to not try and totally recreate something in a very false sense. People should look at these buildings and know that they are not the original buildings, that they're speaking for their own age in which they're created. But I think you can go too far. And there are a couple of things that if they're, whether through the use of color or how the facade is laid out, it can be disruptive to the neighborhood and make sometimes the houses across the street look somehow shabby or inappropriate, or the opposite can happen. And we're not trying to create two neighborhoods here. We're trying to deal only with one historic neighborhood, and that historic theme is what really creates this neighborhood from the very beginning. I looked at a few things. I'm looking at the one now with the vertical lines on the clapboard or whatever it is on the facades, the two of them that are blue. And whenever I see vertical, I always think of the cheap, gussied up
T111.
yeah,
More than that.
T111. That's exactly the stuff that you slap up on and I think vertical is something you want to be very careful with in this neighborhood. If you're putting any kind of clapboard, I think you want to make sure that it's always horizontal and not vertical. Vertical is usually the cheap way to cover a side wall that you don't want to spend any serious money on it. The use of color, there's a couple of smaller buildings there. that only have two bays, over a bay and a door. And to try and take that narrow a structure and make it even narrower with a contrasting color, I think is disruptive. Usually when we do something to take a bay window or something maybe more squared than a typical bay, yes, you can use a different color and it can be very interesting. But when you're looking at what we see here, and I know these are just the conceptual drawings, where there's a big block that's 2 stories, that's absolutely slayed, almost black next to white, it comes across as too radical a change. And I think the use of color is something that you want to be careful. I think when you're looking for variety and original vibrancy, etc., that you don't want to go too far or in the wrong shape, where suddenly a three bay building has 1/3 of it a different color on the top 2 floors. I think that can be very disruptive. I look at the building that's orange and it has all these stripes on it. It's I'm not sure whether it's supposed to be a Tudor or whatever it is, but you'll notice that in the windows on the left, there's a certain number of horizontal pieces in there, and then the middle window and to the right, they're narrower, and it's something that looks somehow very incompatible. If you know the one that I'm looking at there, the squares are different. The other thing is there's on a different slide, there's one that has a very tall building with 2 gray buildings on each side of it, and this one's very high. And that's one of the ones where the squares don't match between the 2 sets of windows. Also, maybe since it's such a tall building, maybe that's the time to put in a different style of building and not look like it matches all 9 windows that go across 1, 2, and 3. Maybe that's the time for that middle one to have something different, maybe wider windows or something for a much wider building than those on either side. I think you have to be sensitive to be compatible to the neighborhood and not radically different from the existing, but also I think each one should be perfect in its own right. There's a little house there that you had a brick red, and it looked lovely and it was compatible. It looks almost like it's a 1-family home. And I could see where that would fit in beautifully, and the color would be brighter than the rest of the neighborhood, but it would support each design, that which was historic and there after 100 years, and that which is created yesterday. So I think we want to be very careful with what people look at. Inside, we don't have jurisdiction anyway, and I think you're going to do a wonderful job for the individuals and the families that are going to live there. We're very positive on that. But I think we also have to think there's another constituency, and those are the people that walk those streets every day. And they should still feel they're in one neighborhood, in one street, and not a piece borrowed from one neighborhood and a lot more from the original neighborhood. There's got to be a compatibility, and yet the obviousness of it, that this is a new generation bringing this neighborhood back to life, but still respecting it for what it is.
Well, thank you. I appreciate those comments.
One more thought to add, following John, your comments, is I think that when we go to the site, we're going to be surprised at how visible some of the side elevations and the rear elevations are. So given the amount of loss in the neighborhood, Can you go back? There was just a slide that had, I don't know, 5 or 6 buildings, and we saw the rear elevation as well as the front elevation. There was one that was even more stark. Yeah, well,
Hold on, I can.
yeah, it doesn't, I mean, I think the point is, when we walk the streets here, we will see areas where, even though it's a rear elevation and we're treating it as a secondary, non-public right-of-way elevation, that we will discover that that's not the case in a neighborhood where there's been so much loss. So I'm just predicting that, and wanna put that out in case any comments when we come back speak to that, both on the side and particularly the rear.
Well, I want to first applaud you for taking on this project. I think it'll be a plus to all involved. And I concur with the commissioners, my fellow commissioners, on comments, and I look forward to going to the site. I think that's a very important thing to do. And one other thing is, have you thought about second means of egresses on the rears?
We have, we were hoping to be able to, in some cases, be able to do that, but the steepness of the sites and the narrowness of the lots, just made it really prohibitive to be able to do that. Where we can, we have multiple, entrances, but with these lots, like when you have that steep sort of stoop, and then it'd be nice to be able to, like, if you had a driveway, be able to go back and go into the side or to the back, but it just wasn't feasible given the steepness of the grade.
My assumption, Lee, is that my assumption from the schedule that you laid out, if you all are starting construction in 2025, there is a good chance that New York State will have upped its code cycle from what they now call the 2020 codes, which are based on the 2018 international codes. And there's a very good chance that by 2025, we will be in New York State based on the 2024 codes. Which
Yeah.
are improved. So most of these are 1 and 2 families for the most part? Or not?
There's one, 2s and 3s, very few ones, but it's mostly duplexes, triplexes, but they're flats, so they fall under the just different codes. The multi-unit buildings are obviously more than that. They're 5 units, and then the smallest ones are the 1 units standalones, and then some 2-unit standalones, and several 3-story flats and 2-story flats adjacent to each other.
So are there sprinklers going in?
Yeah, and that was, where they're required in the sort of in the multis, and also the ones that are attached. But it's something we've been working through, and hopefully, even if the code just changed in 2025, hopefully it will be, permitted before then. But it is something that we as architects always have to be sort of keeping an eye on, also because different code cycles will have different ANSI requirements. And if it goes to the 2017 ANSI requirement, because we're still in the 2009 ANSI requirement for the 2020 building code, it changes things. So we definitely want to get into permitting before that change occurs.
So the answer to your question is, Lee, I think the multifamilies will be sprinklered. And my comment was just that I know we're going through another set of code changes. The 2024 international codes have been finalized. In fact, they're now mostly published. And how New York State adopts those with some modifications, we don't know. But if you've got a sprinkler, if these are sprinkled for the most part, I wouldn't expect a lot of changes from a fire safety standpoint. But you may want to keep your eyes on get your eyes on the 24 IRC and the IBC. You may find some changes there that could find their way to New York. Well, they'll come to New York State, whether we modify it or not is to be determined.
Yeah. Yeah, and we also, look at the energy code requirements and the energy code changes that occur, which can be very impactful. So I know that some municipalities have adopted the 2020 stretch code, which creates, a different threshold. So we keep a ear out, and a lot of times we also ask municipalities to let us know, because it's not always published when they adopt certain things, and
Right.
then they tell us when we go in for permitting, and it's like, oh, okay. So. But Aaron, in terms of like, I hear the board saying that they'll go walk the site. Is there like a report or something some comments that we can get back, some things to keep in mind and some things to add and modify as necessary, or at least recommendations that are provided, so we can have that in writing, and then we know sort of, where you guys stand and where we need to, take a look at different things.
Yes, so there will be meeting minutes from this evening meeting. And
Okay.
then we can I can compile any comments or recommendations from any of the members that do go walk the project area and provide those comments to you. And then if there is anything additionally, I know that we do have a project call scheduled for Wednesday, so I can always bring those up at that call as well.
Yeah, that would be much appreciated. And, personally, I appreciate your time. I appreciate, being able to take a look at this and really help us just get this, moving forward. So thank you.
When can we all get together?
Well, I have a question, the question that I have is, under the assumption, it's an assumption, that the number of stories and the number of units are not what we will be focused on, but rather the materials and the treatment and the details, so primarily elevation changes rather than any more substance. Under that assumption, what is your schedule for needing to prepare the next set of drawings? Or whatever.
So I guess we can see when you're next. I guess you guys meet it like every 2 weeks or so. So it's not just like a once a month thing. So I don't want to, we'd have to talk about it a little bit internally, but we can see what those comments are, and then kind of assess the changes being made and make sure that we give you guys a solid set of drawings that doesn't have, a lot of questions still. So after we get that out, internally, we can talk, and then with ownership, given also just the schedules coming up in the next month or so. But we'd like to be able to get this, as soon as possible in front of you guys, but we want to make sure that we give you guys something solid where there's not a lot of holes for you guys to or questions for you guys to look at.
So based on the planning department's review of this project, there are a number of things that still need to be addressed that we would need from Eduardo and your team, such as fully dimensioned elevations for each building, fully dimensioned floor plan showing each floor for each building, detailed drawings or section drawings of the proposed cornice and front elevations.
And is that for the,
addresses Marilyn's comment of, being able to see how either flat or the profiles of the front from the buildings. Window and door schedules with all the materials, dimensions of the windows for each of the structures, material and the window configurations and door configurations, and then any of the material specifications for exterior cladding, stoop treatments, trim detailing, the railings, canopies, foundation treatments, any type of brackets or denteling that'll be added to any of the cornice lines. And then again, as you said, any of the corrections that address the discrepancies between the elevation drawings for the site plans and then the individual drawings for
Yeah,
elevation.
and is this for the HRC? Is what you're saying? Those drawings
Yes.
are.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I think there's a couple things that we just need to confirm with ownership, because we don't want to give you and we do have some. We've done several wall sections, but we're still kind of fine tuning it, making sure that these are getting priced and that it's what we want to present. So I think ownership can chime in, but we want to make sure that we're giving you something that is also viable and feasible with the project. So that kind of adds a little bit of a variable to the time frame, but we can definitely work with you guys to make sure that we get those things addressed. So I don't know, Ken, Asher.
You'll be on a call with them next Wednesday.
We'll be on a call with them on Wednesday.
Maybe we can kind of internally review, because this feels very substantial to me, and it feels that that we want to work on it collectively following our site visit. So I don't want to overcommit to giving you our best thinking, but I don't want to delay too long either. So I don't want to hold you up, but I want to make sure that we have time to do our best work as well. So maybe we'll talk about that, and then you.
Yeah, and this is Phil from on behalf of the developer on ownership, right? And yeah, and I mean we really appreciate that, what you just said, because again, we are trying to progress this affordable housing, and these big changes to the community that just have an incredibly large and beneficial impact. And certainly, as we all know, we're in the middle of a major, housing affordability crisis, and doing these projects takes a long time. Putting them together, getting them financed by the state of New York, right? Every piece of it takes a long time. So again, we really appreciate your focus on trying to help us move this along, because if this takes us 6 months, or if this takes us 8 months, right, there are all these other steps afterwards that we can't do until we get past this, this process and onto the other, the other many difficult processes we have. So, we're definitely very flexible. And, again, we've got certain limitations around, unit counts, around unit sizes. But, certainly for a lot of things, we have, a lot of flexibility. So, we appreciate your guys' focus on it.
So I think what we can do is, talk, we'll have a discussion with you guys, Aaron, and then we can kind of flesh some things out and make sure that, the board has a chance to be able to chime into what they want to see and all those things. And then what obviously we need to fix from our side, drawing set wise.
Jen or John, did either of you have any comments about the archaeological investigation?
Yeah, I'd like to say a few things, sorry. Just to bring everybody back up to speed, I just wanted to read a short piece of the July 5th letter of this year that was issued from the New York State Preservation Office, the SHPO. Your project is in an archaeological sensitive area and lies within the South End Grosbeck-Bill Historic District. Therefore, the SHPO recommends that a Phase 1A literature search and sensitivity assessment survey is warranted. Given the building demolition and other disturbance that has occurred in all 39 lots, we request that the Phase 1A select up to 10 of the 39 lots to recommend Phase 1B shovel testing based on the following considerations. 1, dates of construction for buildings on the lot. 2, an assessment of prior soil disturbance, which is demolition, recent fill, recent lot use. And 3, an assessment of yard areas in the lots that are outside of the demolished building footprints to determine the potential for intact privies, middens, and other features. So the applicant you guys have submitted, the Phase 1A report. And I've reviewed it, and I think that it's really complete. I was really glad to see that the archaeologist had a series of Sanborn maps in the report. It's great to see, well, there's Sanborn maps included in this report from 1892 to 1950. So it's great to see how the lots have evolved over time and have changed, and some haven't changed very much at all.
And it's that evolution that informs the selection of the lots for the shovel testing, further study.
Yes, actually, could we get one of those Sanborn maps up just so we can kind of visualize?
Sure can.
Great. So if I could just read a few other sections of the report just to kind of get our head around this project that I think pertain to our conversation. So as we know, the project is located in Albany's South End in the 18th century. This area was part of the estate of the Schuyler Mansion, built in 1761 by General Philip Schuyler. After the general's death in 1804, the estate grounds were subdivided into lots and residential construction commenced in the following decades. So it's just kind of nice to know what this whole area was before. Then overall historical land use resulted in the construction of residences on all of the lots that comprise the project. And as a result, the project area contains foundation wall stubs dating to the 19th century. 20th century underground utility construction is also present in the project area at each of the former residential structures. According to historical mapping and mid-20th century aerial imagery, the structures formerly located in the project area appear to have been demolished between 1965 and 1990. So it's also kind of nice to know when all of these structures disappeared. So one other piece, as the lots that have experienced the lowest apparent levels of disturbance and have potentially advantageous positions with respect to pre-contact environmental resources, the following 10 properties are proposed for subsurface testing. So I just wanted to read the list of the properties that are scheduled for phase.
Would you reread the criteria?
Yeah.
The criteria for the selection of those 10?
Sure.
Just restate that.
So that is,
Okay.
you got, it's
You already-
slightly different what I read in the report. I'm happy to reread it if you want.
Okay.
As the lots that have experienced the lowest apparent levels of disturbance and have potentially advantageous positions with respect to pre-contact environmental resources, which,
They're
proximity
potentially
to,
most valuable.
and
in terms of the
proximity to
information.
streams, or the streams that used to be there,
Okay.
or are still there, but under the street now. The following 10 properties are proposed for subsurface testing. So, yes.
What are they?
And there we go, but I was gonna read them too.
Go ahead.
23 Second Ave, 47 Second Ave, 29 Third Ave, 33 Third Ave, 35 Third Ave, 53 Third Ave, 57 Third Ave, 141 Broad Street, 143 Broad Street, and 159 Broad Street. And then I just wanted to read one other small section of the report, which I think is important. The historical map review indicates that the 39 lots associated with the project were initially developed for residential occupation during the mid-19th century. As such, these lots contained privies during all or part of the 19th century. Historical maps indicate that these privies, or outhouses, were located along the rear lot lines and downslope of the residential buildings. The map review indicates that the privies appear to be located outside of the proposed building footprint. To confirm, Stony Creek Archaeology geo-referenced the footprint of the proposed new apartment buildings to better define its location relative to the historically mapped privy locations. In all cases, the proposed building footprint is located along the frontage and will not impact the locations of any privies that might still be present. So that's, I think, very important because privies are often very, are known to have, you know, many artifacts and rich in historical value. So we don't want to disturb them if we don't have to. So that's, I think that was very important.
The privies are treated differently than, say, the kitchen middens or some other type of historic.
Not necessarily, but just knowing, I mean, it's just being in the city of Albany, we're so lucky that we have evidence on the Sanborn maps. You know, can we get another Sanborn map up here? Maybe, can you
I can
zoom in?
a little bit, yeah.
And yeah, so depending on what location, it's probably one of the other ones. Some, you know, a lot of the Sanborn maps indicate, you know, where the privies were in the lot. So, so I think we're fortunate.
We have that.
Yeah, so Commissioner Myers has highlighted in white, those areas are the lots that have been scheduled for phase 1B testing. So yeah, like I said, I reviewed it. I think it's very complete. I did have a few questions that I'd like to ask, and I'm not sure the applicant's gonna be able to answer really everything that we wanted to ask, because it might be more directed to the archaeologist. But this is probably something you know. Do you know when the phase 1B field work is scheduled?
That was actually already completed.
I wasn't sure about that. Okay.
Yeah, it happened last week, so we should be getting our report within a week from now.
Okay.
Early November, they said.
Okay. That's fine. I mean, if it hadn't happened yet, I was going to make a few comments on testing strategy, and Commissioner Myers and I were thinking it would be nice to see the testing strategy before you guys went out. But what my comments would be is that for most of the lots involved, and if we could zoom in again on.
Do you want the?
What about that 3rd Avenue? Yeah, can we zoom in on that? So, like for example, thank you. The lots that are chosen on 3rd Avenue, you can see that the back of the lots are the least developed portion of the parcel. So that, we're assuming that's the least disturbed, and that would be, you know, where to focus the shovel tests on those lots. But there is one lot, can you possibly bring up 47 2nd Avenue? That's a flip-flop. That lot, yeah, that's it on the left side.
This one?
Yeah, the white one.
Oops, sorry.
The development was on the back of the lot.
This one, everything developed in the back.
So the front is gonna be the more sensitive area, and that would be the location where, you know, you would be recommending the shovel test to be placed. And then one last parcel, could we bring up,
Wait, before we leave that, what does it give an indication of the use? That's an odd configuration.
I know.
And all
It's a
the
dwelling.
Sanborn maps from 1892 through
That's what they're
1950, they all showed that usage of that particular
And it does show it as a
parcel.
dwelling. It's got a
Yeah,
D in the
that's
middle.
right. Isn't that, I think that's very interesting too,
Yeah.
very unusual.
Yeah.
Which other one?
Yeah, the other one is
The long
that
skinny one?
23 2nd Avenue, I think. which on the Sanborn maps, I think it's historically, yeah, that's it. It's historically known as 17 to 21. It's the one in the middle. And the left side of the parcel has been whited out by Commissioner Myers. That, yeah, right there. So that one, I mean, it's just, that one I noticed on the 1892 Sanborn, it's just the western side, or the west part of the building existed. The east side wasn't there, or it was a very, a smaller building. Anyway, the center of that parcel seems to have had little disturbance over the years. So, you know, again, that's where we would have recommended shovel test pits in that section. But, you know, all in all, I mean, we'll review the phase 1B report when it comes, and, you know, we can look over the testing strategy.
Actually, it would be great if we had the phase 1B report when we go down to visit the site.
Yeah.
So that we kind of have the archaeological evidence that has been uncovered and the contextual integration of new buildings within the fabric of existing buildings that
Yes.
we're looking at.
I like it. That's a good idea.
Yeah, but and I mean, I would generally say, right, we're a developer. We've hired an archaeologist to provide us with advice on this matter. So I don't think we have a strong, I don't think we have any skin in this game on this particular topic, but we would also defer completely to our qualified expert as to
Yeah, no, that's okay. I just wanted to make those comments.
And
just
why
so
they're
everybody's clear on what.
why
that's
they're
the way
doing it
I
and
go
what
about
they're
these
doing for the
things.
test.
But yeah, so I'd like to just read another SHPO letter from October 12th from Jessica Schreier, the Albany County reviewer. And she says that SHPO has reviewed the Phase 1A Archaeological Survey report prepared for this project. SHPO concurs with the report recommendations that a Phase 1B archaeological survey is warranted, and we support the Phase 1B testing strategy outlined in the report. And, I agree. I also concur that, this seems like a sensible and realistic testing strategy. Picking the 10 lots. So we'll just be, very interested in reviewing the 1B report when it does get submitted. And I thank you for submitting the 1A, and I'm also thrilled about the project. It's gonna be great.
Thank you.
Do you guys have any questions concerning the archaeology?
Not from my end, but thank you. Very, very useful information. Just to kind of see these maps is really interesting how failed it was. You guys information, but
Yeah, second, Ned. Appreciate that synopsis you provided us. Thank you.
Yep, and Kenny, you'll be following up with the archaeologist to provide that 1B as soon as possible.
Yep, that should be soon. Should be like within the week.
Great.
That'd be great.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll be notified actually when it's accepted, because I'm a contact for the project. So, I think everybody on the list is notified when something's been accepted, so.
And we actually read these things.
Any other
Any other
questions?
comments, or are we concluded with our discussions
No,
on
not
the scattered sites? Well, we certainly appreciate your time and energy put into the project, and look forward to the next steps and our site walkthrough, and get some notes back to you so that you have there's an exchange of information and a dialogue that will help inform the your development of the design as it moves forward.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, and we've been having conversations with the community for probably a year and a half, 18 months now about this project and the other projects that have been, or the other the homeownership project that has been in front of, in front of this, this board. So, we appreciate it, and we're looking forward to, really impacting some positive change in the neighborhood, the support of the community.
Is this all home ownership? No, right?
This portion of
It's
the
all
project
rent.
is rental.
Yeah,
This
our
question is-
Yeah.
So what was the
Our oth-
reference that we just, that's what I thought, what was the reference? we just-
you've
Broad
previously
Street.
approved, you've previously approved a home
So
ownership
the-
project that we did.
Yeah.
The 5 buildings that were on Broad Street that were
Yes.
presented by Dan Sanders, that was for home ownership. And then there's another cluster of buildings on Libel Street that are also home ownership that are outside of the historic district.
It's that hill, right?
Well, again,
All right.
thank you very much.
And thank you. We really appreciate it. Okay.
Great,
And
thank
we'll-
you.
And and Aaron, we'll be in touch with the rest of the team and stuff. So,
Okay, thank you, Eduardo.
all right, thank you. Right.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Thank
You
you.
all.
Thank you very much.
very good.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. That was great. That was great. Thank you. I love that you guys liked it. But we'll do it again after the 1 report.
We sure
I'll see what they find.
So, a question,
Yes.
how many different streets on each side of the street are like 6 or 8, right, kind of ish? Like how many different streets and in all, on those streets are we on both sides?
Broad,
Now? Yeah, well,
let me pull up the,
because it feels like we're gonna walk around and we're gonna get I will walk around and we'll have printouts of this, but I'll be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And how do we make sense of it and sit down in a comfortable place to have thank you.
Yeah, so this is the 1950 Sanborn, so we've got 3 lots on this side, then 2 on there. So that's second.
Yep.
This is also second, so we've got 1 here.
4, 5.
And that's Broad and Clinton, these are all, look at how long that lot is.
Okay.
That's, and then third, there's just on one side of the street, third.
So a lot.
Yeah,
So if I were doing this for my own purposes, I would probably go and photograph by street, looking north, looking south, to understand the context. And then I would have those photographs next to the proposed elevations or renderings. Because otherwise,
In many instances, they have either a line drawing of the
of one
mounting
building,
building or a grayed out photograph
of one
So-
building, yeah.
of the neighbor building.
sorry, give me 1 second.
I get, well, maybe I'm not using my imagination well enough, because I don't feel like I get the context from that.
No,
Sorry.
no,
Oh,
I
okay.
agree,
Oh, okay, okay,
but they
So-
provided that in their drawings, so that will help orient,
yes,
you in looking at those street facades and locating where they're buildings. Hopefully they've got, in their imagery, they've got the buildings that bracket the blocks that they're putting in. So will help identify where they are.
so I would ask the following, does the following make sense? If each of us, together or individually, whatever, go to the site, and then if we had a working session with images that I would offer to take and bring back and have available, so that we're looking at Broad Street, we can pull up a slide for Broad Street looking. north.
yeah, that's a good idea.
So we have it here.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be cold out there, and we're gonna be all talking in different groups, and this one we wanna talk about a railing, and this one we wanna talk
Yeah,
about
so-
something else.
Right, we'll
God
go
forbid you go
site
to
visit.
one group, because then you're violating.
Correct. so.
Oh,
you-
right.
Yeah, that's
we-
the other problem.
Yeah.
It can't be more than three.
Yeah.
Well,
we could
unless
notice
it's a
it.
workshop. Can we
Well,
have it,
so, I mean,
can we have a workshop on
it would
the
need to be a
field?
public workshop, we would need to have it open to the applicant, we need to have it open to the public.
You can notice it.
It would need to be noticed, so it would technically be, I mean, if it was outside of a regularly scheduled meeting, we would have to notice it as like a
Yeah,
special meeting.
Maybe we should, because we're probably all gonna wanna be there.
but well, I'm almost asking about two different sessions and I'll expect that both of them would need to be noticed. But that's okay, so we notice them.
Yeah, I mean, you can notice them and all go together,
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
all wanna
or
be
you
together.
can go separately in groups.
Right.
In quorum.
But to come, I'm particularly interested in this possibility, if others think it would be useful,
I mean,
to reconvene.
we could add it as a workshop item to a regular meeting. So if you wanted to go between now and November 14th or 16th, I can't remember the exact date, or now, if you wanted a larger span of time, we could split you up, whatever. We could always add it as workshop items to both of those meetings for you to be able to go to do a site visit, and then we could have it on a regular agenda just as a workshop item. Or like a working session for you to be able to openly with, any members of the public that wish to attend or the applicant that wishes to attend, be able to get any of that feedback or discussion items that you just had at those. Recap
We
those
should do
things.
it sooner because it's starting to get cold.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's not gonna be any fun out there, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Well, the
get the
second
best out
one's,
of it.
I think, here, right? The second one's
after you've had.
Yeah.
after we've been to the site,
Been to the site.
kind of get to really work through. And I'm happy to go and take the photographs and organize them so that we have them available.
Another useful tool is Street View on Google Earth.
That's true,
Yeah.
that's right.
And you can go back.
Some of them may,
Lost
some buildings may
buildings.
have been lost in the meantime.
Right.
But most
That's
of the
right.
images are, and I looked at the Street View for the German Evangelical Church. It was spot on with what we saw.
Look at that. I guess however we get
You
to
can do
it,
that in a warm environment.
right. However we get to it, having a collective discussion feels appropriate for this to really, because it's important. This is really
And
important.
Aaron, you have discussions with the developer periodically?
Yeah, so this project is going through both the planning board and the Historic Resources Commission for the certificate of appropriateness for the new construction, and then the development plan review is the planning board review portion of it. My colleague, Avi Epstein, who, and Ghislaine Juswell, who are both reviewing the development plan review portion of it. Avi has suggested that we have kind of try to do like regular updates with the development team, because it is such a large scale project. But after the last submission, we reached out, we will be having a discussion with them on Wednesday.
At any one of those meetings, would you want any participant from the HRC?
Right now, it's,
Or is it more on the planning side of things?
right now it's been, I think, more more constructive having kind of having a smaller group of people be able to really kind of go through everything. So right now, I think planning staff has been fairly capable of having kind of tough discussions with them, so.
So back to your question, should we talk about when we wanna go, or how we wanna go, or
Yeah,
how many can go in groups of?
Well, if we wanted to, we could always technically we could schedule a site visit we could always just do it as a special meeting
10 days,
and notice it.
right?
So I would
Yeah.
need to know in order, the notice needs to go out 10 days in advance, so we would probably need to have something kind of finalized so that we can have it together within like 12 days.
When is the next HRC meeting?
So the next HRC meeting is November 16th.
Okay, so I guess we can't go that day. You can cancel it? I said, I guess we can't go that day,
Oh,
right, because there's gonna be probably other stuff. So I guess we can't go on the.
How many can go? I forgot. How many
So-
can go?
If you notice it.
If we don't, yeah. go ahead.
If we notice it, we can all go.
Yeah.
You can
If-
come,
If,
If you don't notice it,
if we
no
don't-
more than three.
three,
no more than 3,
Yeah.
correct.
no more than three,
Yeah, correct.
so 2 groups of
Yeah.
3 or.
Well, maybe we should go November 30th.
It sounds like an afternoon, there's a lot.
It's a lot to look at, yeah.
Yeah.
We should start next week, why are we waiting so long?
Well, but they need 10 days to notice it,
So
so we all can go.
if everybody wants to go, I guess if everybody wants to go together,
It's not necessary. It's for us to go.
or we can split it. And then
Split it.
people can go based on their availabilities.
I think if we agree to come back and spend time working at it, it's not as important to be there all together. That would be my thinking.
Do you want me to send out like a doodle poll and you can all put in your availability and then break out into groups based on availabilities? Would that work for everybody?
Means you can do it a lot sooner. Given
Will
the weather.
Will the applicant come?
I think for this,
It's not necessary.
I mean, they're in Rochester, they're downstate. If you're all just gonna be going into like in small groups without a quorum
Yeah.
to just look at the sites with the plans, then
Well,
I would
the
say-
relationship with existing buildings, how they,
right.
you know,
And
compatible to the
And
current.
it's in order for you all to develop comments and feedback for them to
I
present at a
suspect
meeting.
we will change the elevations.
I think we pretty
That's
good
what I
at
suspect.
September.
You know, not drastically,
You what?
but we will have some type of,
There?
you know, we can
Here.
draw right on the elevation drawings, you know.
Can
Go
we,
to the site and see what's what, like we take pictures or whatever.
yeah, I'm
Come
happy to
back
take
here.
photos and have them ready for us. Can we set an extra workshop, are people willing to make an extra date out of our regular schedule? That would be noted, that would be noticed, to do a working session, so,
We don't have an agenda for November 16th.
Oh, really?
It's not set yet
Good. Let's do it then.
as of yet.
okay.
I mean, I can add it as a workshop item for that meeting.
Yeah.
If you
great.
are able,
That's
if
great,
you are able to get if we're able to schedule site visits between now
great,
and November 6th, when the
Yep.
agenda has to go out,
Yeah.
yes,
Can you
then I
add-
can add it as a workshop item. I mean, I can even add
Perfect.
it and then just, if nothing
If it doesn't
happens,
happen,
you can withdraw
okay.
it.
You can have both at the same time, as long as you say they're both. So you could have a workshop on item A and B.
Oh, yeah,
And then you would then go into the full-blown commission meeting that
Correct.
requires a vote on
Yes.
item B.
Yeah, I mean,
We've done that before.
we can
We
schedule
situation
workshops and
like
hearings,
that.
yeah, together. That's not a problem.
So all we have to do is arrange for 2 groups of no more 3 to actually go.
Right.
And the sooner the better.
Okay,
Okay.
so you'll doodle poll us and,
I'll send something out
Thank you.
tomorrow.
great,
Okay.
Mhm.
2 groups of 3.
And as
Because
soon
I'll
as-
I'll have my own assignment of photographing for our workshop. So I'll go anyway and probably, so if I'm not with you all, a group of 2 or 3, that's okay, because I'll kind of be on my own schedule anyway, photographing this way and that way, and come back for the morning and the afternoon and the sun, and
Sir, you won't be missed.
I won't be missed.
Yes, we will.
No. I won't be missed.
Okay.
On that note, is there anything else, Aaron, to come before the commission?
I meant to send it out this afternoon, but I forgot, and I will send it out. I received email notifications from, there's an International Masonry forum that I belong to, and they are having 3 workshops. So if anybody needs any type of like continuing ed or would be interested, it's about brick restoration and some other things. I can send that out if anybody, they're free. So I'll send that out.
Where is it?
It's a webinar, they're virtual. They're very interesting and very informative. It's all about masonry.
Yeah.
And then, putting out another plea, we
have to sign up for a training.
we revised the job description for the preservation planner position to an entry-level preservation planner. It's currently up on the city website, and I can send the link out, but if anybody knows anybody that's looking for coming out of a preservation program or within the field that's looking to change positions, if you want to share it, or if you know any type of like networking or professional forum, feel free to send it around.
If they're eager and smart, do they have to have and a planner, do they have to have a preservation background
We're
for the entry level?
We're looking for somebody with preservation background, hopefully.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a candidate coming out of the preservation program, but if they have some sort of knowledge of preservation, that would be a big plus.
That'll be on PreserveNet, right?
Yes, so it's not up yet, but it will be up there, yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Jen, could you yawn again, please? Aye.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Now, what was that about the German evangelical church?
Oh, that's.
Did I miss something?